Dr. Manhattan does not arrive in the Marvel Universe with thunder, portals, or war. He does not announce himself with cosmic flames or dimensional tears. He simply exists where he did not exist before, standing on the surface of Mars, observing Earth 37 million miles away. There is no fanfare, no celestial alarms, no prophecy fulfilled. He materializes because the mathematics of causality demanded it, because every particle in creation moved in exactly the way they always would, because this moment was inevitable from the instant the universe began. And in that quiet materialization, in that soundless transition from absence to presence, something fundamental shifts in the fabric of Marvel's reality. The future stops being uncertain. The silence is what terrifies them first. Across the cosmos, entities that have witnessed the birth and death of galaxies feel it, a sudden flattening of probability. The living tribunal pauses mid-judgment. Eternity experiences something it has never known, hesitation. In the dark dimension, Dormammu's flames flicker with confusion. On Titan's ruins, the remaining temples to death grow cold. It is not an explosion of power they sense, but its opposite, a compression of possibility, a narrowing of all potential timelines into singular, unavoidable outcomes. Reality doesn't scream, it whispers, and that whisper says, nothing is random anymore. The multiverse, built on infinite choices and branching paths, feels the presence of something that sees only one path, the path that already happened. The Watcher stands on his moon, as he has for eons, sworn to observe but never interfere. He turns his vast cosmic awareness toward Mars, and for the first time in his immortal existence, he understands what it means to be irrelevant. Dr. Manhattan's blue form glows against the red planet like a star made flesh, and Uatu realizes with eeping horror that he is not witnessing history, he is watching a recording. Every event he has observed, every choice made by heroes and villains across time, every moment he catalogued as significant or trivial, Manhattan has already seen them all. Past, present, future, compressed into a single tableau of certainty. The Watcher cannot interfere because there is nothing left to interfere with. The story is already written. It has always been written. On Earth, the Avengers assemble without knowing why. Tony Stark runs diagnostics that show nothing wrong, yet his arc reactor fluctuates for reasons his algorithms cannot explain. Thor grips Mjolnir tighter, sensing a presence older than Asgard, stranger than eternity. Doctor Strange tastes copper in the air, feels the mystic arts respond sluggishly, as if magic itself has become uncertain of its own rules. They gather in their tower, these champions of a universe built on hope and choice, and they do not yet understand what every cosmic entity already knows. They are being measured, not as threats, not as allies or enemies. They are being catalogued as variables in an equation that has already been solved. Somewhere in their collective unconscious, they feel it, the terrible weight of predestination settling onto their shoulders like invisible chains. Dr. Manhattan observes them from Mars. He sees Tony Stark adjusting his armor 4.3 seconds before Stark consciously decides to do so. He watches Thor's knuckles whiten on Mjolnir's handle 8.7 seconds before the Thunder God registers his own anxiety. Every heartbeat, every neural firing, every quantum fluctuation of their being, mapped, known, inevitable. To Manhattan, the Avengers are not people making choices. They are particles following trajectories determined 13.8 billion years ago when the universe sparked into being. He does not judge them for this. He does not pity them. He simply observes what has always been true, but which they have never had to confront. Free will is a comforting story. Matter tells itself while obeying the laws of physics. And if you're wondering whether anyone in the Marvel Universe can change what comes next, whether magic or cosmic power or sheer heroic determination can alter the outcome Manhattan has already perceived, then you need to understand what we're actually asking. Because this isn't a story about power levels or who wins in a fight. This is about what happens when a universe built on the idea that choices matter meets someone who has proven, scientifically and absolutely, that choices are illusions. So, subscribe, Because what unfolds next isn't just the story of Marvel's heroes facing their greatest challenge, it's the story of an entire cosmology being forced to confront its own fundamental assumptions. And the answer is far more terrifying than any villain they've ever faced. The question isn't whether the Marvel Universe can defeat Dr. Manhattan. The question is whether it can remain the Marvel Universe, a place of hope, heroism, and meaningful choice, while he exists within it. Can Spider-Man's responsibility mean anything if his every action was predetermined? Can the X-Men fight for a better tomorrow if tomorrow is already written? Can Captain America's shield defend freedom if freedom itself is a mathematical impossibility? These aren't hypothetical philosophical debates. They are about to become the lived reality of every being in this cosmos. Because Dr. Manhattan doesn't conquer, he doesn't destroy, he simply reveals. And what he reveals breaks worlds more thoroughly than any infinity gauntlet or cosmic cube ever could. The blue figure on Mars takes a single step. It is not a large step, it is not dramatic, but in that movement, in that infinitesimal shift of position, the future of the Marvel Universe crystallizes into something singular, unavoidable, and absolutely terrifying. He is coming to Earth, not to save it, not to rule it, simply to exist within it. And existence, when wielded by someone who perceives all of time simultaneously, is the most devastating weapon imaginable. The Avengers prepare for battle. The cosmic entities brace for confrontation. The Watcher witnesses what he cannot prevent, and none of them understand yet that the war is already over. It ended before it began, 14 billion years ago, when causality made its first inevitable choice. Within nanoseconds of Manhattan's step, the cosmic hierarchy of Marvel responds, not with aggression, they are beyond such crude reactions, but with investigation. Eternity unfolds itself across dimensions, its awareness touching the edges of Manhattan's presence like fingers testing bathwater. What it finds defies categorization. Dr. Manhattan is not a cosmic entity in the Marvel sense. He is not abstract or conceptual. He is matter that has remembered what it truly is, quantum probability collapsed into consciousness. He is physics made aware of itself. And that awareness extends across every moment of time simultaneously, making him not a god but something stranger, a closed causal loop walking in human shape. Eternity has witnessed countless beings ascend to godhood. This is different. This is descent. Manhattan has shed divinity for something more terrible, absolute certainty. The living tribunal manifests in the space between dimensions, its three faces turning to observe this anomaly. It has judged realities, weighed universes, balanced the scales of existence itself. But judgment requires alternatives, and as the tribunal focuses its infinite perception on Dr. Manhattan, it experiences a sensation it has no framework for: redundancy. Every verdict it might render, Manhattan has already seen. Every cosmic law it might enforce, Manhattan exists outside of. The tribunal does not operate on hope or fear, it operates on necessity. But what is necessary in a universe where one being can see necessity before it occurs? The three faces, equity, vengeance, necessity, look upon Manhattan and find themselves reflected back as obsolete concepts. When all outcomes are known, justice becomes a performance, and the tribunal has never performed. On Earth, the immediate disruptions begin small, subtle. A man in New York decides to take the subway instead of walking, and for this, he first time in his life knows with absolute certainty it was not his choice. He cannot explain how he knows, he simply knows. Across the planet, millions of humans experience this same uncanny recognition, the sudden, invasive awareness that their decisions were always going to be exactly what they are. Psychologists call it mass delusion, scientists blame solar flares, but the mystics know better. Doctor Strange feels it in the Sanctum Sanctorum, watching the threads of probability that usually dance with chaotic beauty now hanging straight and still, like puppet strings pulled taut. The future is not being rewritten, it is being revealed as having always been written, and humanity's collective unconscious screams at the violation. In Wakanda, Shuri's quantum computers begin producing impossible results. Calculations that should require hours complete in seconds, but not because the processors have accelerated, because the answers arrive before the calculations finish. Her AI systems report the same equation solved in multiple contradictory ways, all simultaneously correct. She runs diagnostics, finding nothing wrong with her technology. The problem is reality itself. Probability has stopped behaving probabilistically. When she attempts to predict weather patterns, the models do not calculate, they remember, as if the future weather has already happened and is simply being recalled. She contacts Reed Richards, hoping the Fantastic Four's leader can explain it. He cannot. His own instruments show the same temporal echo. They are not predicting the future. They are detecting it, as if tomorrow already exists in the same concrete way yesterday does. The X-Men gather in Cerebro's chamber, and Professor Xavier experiences something that nearly breaks his telepathic mind. He can read thoughts as always, but underneath every conscious decision, every mental deliberation, he sees the substrate, the quantum-level determinism that Manhattan perceives. Wolverine deciding to light a cigar, Storm considering the weather, Jean Grey reaching for a cup of coffee. Beneath each choice, Xavier sees the inevitable particle movements, the predetermined neural firings, the clockwork of causality making their choices for them billions of years before they were born. He removes the helmet with shaking hands, his faith in human agency shattered in seconds. If mutant powers are genetic and genetics are deterministic, then evolution itself is not adaptation but inevitability. Every mutant who will ever exist already exists in the mathematics. The future is not being shaped, it is being uncovered. Thor returns to Asgard seeking answers from Heimdall, the all-seeing guardian. But Heimdall's golden eyes, which can perceive across the 9 realms and beyond, find themselves outmatched. He describes it to Thor in terms the thunder god can barely comprehend. I see what is happening across the cosmos. Manhattan sees what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen as a single object. Time, for him, is not a river, but a sculpture, complete, finished, unchanging. Thor demands to know if they can fight such a being. Heimdall's silence is answer enough. You cannot fight a conclusion, you cannot war against mathematics. The gods of Asgard, who have shaped fate for eons, discover they were only ever acting out predetermined roles. Every prophecy, every Ragnarok averted or fulfilled was always going to occur exactly as it did. Free will was the greatest illusion of all. In the quantum realm, where time behaves strangely and causality loosens its grip, something unprecedented occurs. The realm begins to solidify. Janet Van Dyne, lost in that space for years, feels the change immediately, the fluid, chaotic nature of quantum reality crystallizing into fixed states. Possibilities that used to branch infinitely now collapse into singular outcomes before they can be observed. Schrödinger's cat opens its own box because the box was always going to open at exactly that moment. Quantum superposition becomes quantum predestination. She tries to send a warning to Hank Pym, but the message arrives before she sends it, because Manhattan's presence does not respect the arrow of time. The quantum realm, which should be immune to classical causality, bends to his perception. If he can see it, it has already happened. If it has already happened, choice is cosmological theater. And through all of this, Dr. Manhattan has not moved from Mars. He has not spoken. He has not acted. His mere existence is the disruption, his observation the catastrophe. He watches Earth with the same detached curiosity he once watched Vietnam. With the same clinical interest he observed atomic particles in the intrinsic field. The heroes of Marvel, beings who have defeated cosmic horrors, rewritten reality, held infinity in their hands, scramble to understand what he is. But understanding requires framework, and Manhattan exists outside every framework they have. He is not good or evil, not order or chaos, not creation or destruction. He is inevitability given form, and inevitability cannot be reasoned with, cannot be fought, cannot be escaped. It can only be accepted. And acceptance, for heroes who have built their entire identities on the power of choice, is a death worse than any physical destruction. The universe holds its breath, not in anticipation, in recognition. Recognition that something fundamental has changed, that the rules governing existence have been exposed as suggestions, that every triumph and tragedy was always choreographed by the mathematics of causality. Dr. Manhattan's blue glow on Mars grows slightly brighter, not with power, but with attention. He is preparing to descend to Earth, not as conqueror, not as judge, simply as observer. But his observation will be the most devastating invasion the Marvel Universe has ever endured. Because unlike Galactus, who devours worlds, unlike Thanos, who erases half of life, Manhattan will do something far worse. He will show them the truth, and the truth is that they were never as free as they believed. Dr. Manhattan appears in Earth's atmosphere without transition. No teleportation effect, no energy signature, no distortion of space-time. He simply is not on Mars, and then he is above New York, floating 300 meters over Times Square. The humans below do not panic immediately. They photograph him with their phones, this glowing blue figure hanging motionless in the sky like a second sun. Some think it's a publicity stunt. Others assume it's another superhero event, but their nervous systems know better. Heart rates spike across the city without conscious fear. Adrenaline floods bloodstreams for no reason people can articulate. The ancient parts of their brains, the parts that evolved to recognize predators, scream warnings their rational minds cannot interpret. They are in the presence of something that should not exist, something that violates the unspoken contract between observer and observed. Manhattan looks down at them, and they feel seen in a way that strips away privacy, dignity, personhood itself. The Avengers respond within seconds. Iron Man arrives first, his armor's sensors straining to analyze the figure before him, but every scan produces contradictory data. Manhattan reads as matter and energy and neither. His temperature registers as absolute zero and several million degrees simultaneously. He appears to have mass and to be massless. Tony's AI systems crash trying to model something that exists in quantum superposition at macroscopic scale. He hovers 10 meters from Manhattan, armor weapons armed but not aimed, and speaks, "Identify yourself. State your intentions." Manhattan turns to face him, and Tony Stark, genius, futurist, man who built gods from metal, experiences the most terrifying moment of his life. Because Manhattan answers not with words, but with time. Tony sees his own question 4.6 seconds before he asks it, sees his armor targeting systems activate 3.2 seconds before he triggers them, sees his heart rate spike 1.8 seconds before the fear chemical cascade begins. He is watching himself make choices that have already been made. Thor descends with lightning, Mjolnir crackling with the storm's fury. He has faced Celestials, battled Surtur, stood against the darkness at the end of all things. But as he approaches Manhattan, the storm dies. Not because Manhattan wills it. The lightning simply stops because in the causal chain of events Manhattan perceives, this moment contains no lightning. Thor's muscles strain to raise Mjolnir, and the hammer responds, but both god and weapon feel the terrible truth. They are not choosing this action, they are performing it. The difference seems academic, philosophical, but to Thor, who has staked his entire existence on being worthy, on choosing honor over ease, the distinction is everything. Worthiness implies choice. If choice is illusion, then worthiness is meaningless. Mjolnir does not leave his hand, but its weight feels different now. Heavier, or perhaps he has simply become aware of weight he was always carrying. Captain America's shield cuts through the air, thrown with perfect precision at Manhattan's center mass. Steve Rogers has calculated trajectories 1,000 times, trusting his enhanced reflexes and tactical mind. The shield should ricochet, should return to his hand as it always does, but Manhattan reaches out. Not quickly, not slowly, simply with the exact motion required, and catches it. The vibranium surface, which has withstood blows from gods, shows no impact mark. Because there was no impact, Manhattan's hand was always going to be in exactly the position to receive it, and the shield was always going to arrive at that position at that moment. Steve watches his greatest weapon, the symbol of his ideals, held casually by something that makes those ideals irrelevant. Freedom requires the possibility of different choices. Justice requires that actions could have been otherwise. But if every action was predetermined, then what is Captain America? Ica defending, a comforting fiction. Black Widow attempts infiltration of a different kind, psychological. She approaches slowly, hands visible, voice calm. She has talked down gods and monsters, negotiated with cosmic tyrants. She uses the techniques that have served her for decades. Establish rapport, find common ground, identify what the subject wants. But Manhattan does not want. Wanting implies an uncertain future where desire might or might not be fulfilled. He exists beyond want, beyond need, beyond motivation itself. Natasha realizes with growing horror that every word she speaks, he heard before she decided to speak it. Every micro-expression, every calculated gesture of her body language, he has already catalogued as inevitable. She is not negotiating. She is reciting lines in a play that was written before she was born. Her greatest weapon, the ability to read and manipulate others, is useless against someone who reads her across every moment of time simultaneously. Bruce Banner watches from the Quinjet, trying to keep calm, trying to prevent the other guy from emerging. But Manhattan's gaze finds him even through the aircraft's hull, and in that moment of eye contact, Banner experiences something that nearly breaks him. He sees the Hulk's rage, not as emotion, but as biochemistry. Sees his own gamma-irradiated cells not as curse, but as predetermined configuration of matter. Sees his entire struggle for control as pointless theater. The Hulk will emerge exactly when causality determines. Banner's willpower, his breathing exercises, his desperate attempts to choose calm over rage, all of it predetermined. The green begins to show on his skin, and he cannot tell if he is losing control or simply becoming aware that control was always illusion. Manhattan observes this transformation with the same neutral interest he would show to a chemical reaction, because that is all it is. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, gamma radiation, arranging themselves in their inevitable patterns. The assembled Avengers hover and stand around Dr. Manhattan, Earth's mightiest heroes, and they feel something they have never collectively experienced. Helplessness. Not the helplessness of being overpowered. They have faced stronger foes. This is the helplessness of being irrelevant. Manhattan is not fighting them. Fighting implies uncertainty of outcome. He is simply existing in the same space, and his existence invalidates theirs. Every victory they have ever won, they now understand, was always going to happen. Every sacrifice, every heroic choice was inevitable from the moment the universe began. They are not heroes. They are particles following their predetermined paths, no more capable of choosing heroism than a rock is capable of choosing to fall. And in this moment of terrible clarity, they understand what they face. Not an enemy, not even a threat, a revelation. And revelations cannot be defeated. Manhattan speaks for the first time, and his voice is quiet, matter-of-fact, devoid of emotion or emphasis. You are going to ask me why I am here. Every Avenger freezes because they were about to ask exactly that. The answer is, because I was always going to be here, at this moment, with you standing in these positions, about to make the choices you believe are yours. He gestures, a simple movement of his hand, and reality stutters. For one impossible second, the Avengers see themselves from outside, see the quantum wave functions that comprise their bodies, see the deterministic neural cascades that generate their thoughts, see the illusion of self stripped away to reveal clockwork made of flesh. The vision lasts only a moment, but that moment is enough. They have seen what Manhattan sees. They have witnessed themselves as he witnesses them, predetermined, inevitable, without agency or choice, and they cannot unsee it. The sun continues to shine over New York. People in Times Square continue to take photographs. The universe continues its expansion, its entropy, its slow march toward heat death. Everything appears normal, but something has broken that cannot be repaired. The Avengers, who have saved this universe countless times, who have stood against impossible odds and prevailed through sheer determination and choice, now know the truth. They were never saving anything. They were always going to do exactly what they did. Success and failure were both predetermined, hope and despair equally inevitable. And Dr. Manhattan, glowing blue against the afternoon sky, watches them process this realization with the same detached interest he once watched the intrinsic field chamber tear his body apart and rebuild it as God. He is not cruel. Cruelty requires intent. He is simply showing them what was always true, and the truth is destroying them more thoroughly than any weapon ever could. The news spreads across the superhero community, not through official channels, but through something more primal: shared trauma. In the X-Mansion, Jean Grey gasps mid-sentence, her telepathy catching the psychic shockwave of the Avengers' collective realization. She experiences their horror secondhand, the feeling of watching yourself make choices before you make them, of seeing free will exposed as elegant fiction. Cyclops asks what's wrong, and Jean cannot find words adequate to the violation she has sensed. How do you explain that every decision you have ever made was predetermined, that your struggle to control the Phoenix Force, to choose humanity over cosmic power, was itself predetermined, that the choice was never yours? She reaches for Scott's hand, and even that gesture of comfort feels tainted now. Was it love that moved her hand, or merely the inevitable motion of particles obeying physical law? In Latveria, Dr. Doom's sensors detect Manhattan's arrival and analyze the temporal anomalies radiating from New York. Victor Von Doom, who has mastered both science and sorcery, who has stolen the power of cosmic beings, who has rewritten reality itself, performs calculations that should be impossible. He models Manhattan's quantum state, maps the probability collapse, projects the causal implications. And for the first time in his arrogant existence, Doom experiences genuine fear. Not fear of power. He has faced the Beyonder, challenged Galactus, bargained with Mephisto. This is fear of obsolescence. If the future is fixed, then Doom's ambitions are either guaranteed or impossible, and either option is intolerable. His entire identity rests on the belief that through will and intellect, he can reshape reality to his vision. But will means nothing in a determined universe. Doom's genius, which has solved every problem he has encountered, cannot solve inevitability. The Fantastic Four converge in their Baxter Building laboratory, Reed Richards' mind racing through theoretical frameworks. He writes equations across every available surface, trying to model what Manhattan represents. Sue watches her husband descend into frantic calculation, recognizing the signs. Reed only becomes this obsessive when confronted with something that challenges fundamental assumptions. Johnny suggests they just blast the blue guy, half joking, but his flames flicker uncertainly. Even the Human Torch, who has never been philosophical, feels it. The wrongness of Manhattan's presence, the way reality seems to crystallize around him. And Ben Grimm, the Thing, sits in the corner experiencing a different kind of horror. His mutation, which he has hated for years, which he has desperately wished he could change, was it always inevitable? Was he always going to become this monster? Was there never any possibility of remaining Ben Grimm, regular guy? The thing he has blamed on accident and choice was neither. It was destiny wearing the mask of tragedy. In the Sanctum Sanctorum, Doctor Strange attempts what he has done 1,000 times, peer into potential futures using the Eye of Agamotto. The Time Stone responds, showing him branching timelines as it always has. But now Strange sees something he has never noticed before. The branches are not truly divergent. They curve back, converging on singular points, like a river splitting around islands only to merge again downstream. Manhattan's presence has not changed the future. It has revealed what was always true. The timelines Strange thought he was choosing between were all leading to the same destinations. Every moment he thought he was altering fate, he was simply discovering which predetermined path he was on. The weight of this revelation nearly crushes him. He has died 14 million times to find the one future. Where they win. But what if that single timeline was not chosen by his actions, but was always the only timeline that could exist? What if his sacrifice was not choice, but inevitability dressed in heroism? Spider-Man swings through New York, his spider sense screaming, but it is not warning him of danger, it is warning him of certainty. Peter Parker, who has built his entire heroic identity on responsibility, on the idea that with great power comes great choice, feels his sense tingling with a different message. You were always going to be here, at this moment, making this swing, thinking these thoughts. Uncle Ben's death, which has motivated every heroic act Peter has performed, was it meaningless coincidence or predetermined tragedy? Was his choice to use his powers for good actually a choice, or simply the inevitable result of his neurology, his upbringing, his guilt? He lands on a rooftop and pulls off his mask, looking at his hands that have saved thousands. But did he save them, or were they always going to be saved, and he simply fulfilled the role causality assigned him? The spider that bit him, was it random chance or the universe following its predetermined script? Across the planet, heroes experience this same crisis in their own ways. Carol Danvers floats in orbit, her binary powers flaring uncertainly as she questions whether her journey from human to Kree hybrid to cosmic champion was ever her choice. T'Challa stands in Wakanda's throne room, wondering if his worthiness to be Black Panther was predetermined by genetics and tradition rather than earned through character. Wanda Maximoff stares at her hands, her chaos magic, which should be the ultimate expression of randomness and choice, flickering with uncertainty. If even chaos follows patterns Manhattan can see, then what is chaos? What is magic? What is will? The philosophical questions that seemed abstract and academic before Manhattan's arrival are now immediate, visceral, threatening to unmake the very concept of heroism. Because heroes require agency. Without choice there are no heroes, only particles following trajectories. In deep space, the Guardians of the Galaxy receive garbled transmissions from Earth. Star-Lord tries to pass the panic in the messages, the references to a blue man who can see time. Gamora recognizes the description. She has heard whispers of beings who exist outside normal causality, though she has never believed them. Drax, literal as always, asks the question that cuts to the heart of it. If this being can see all futures, can he see his own death? Rocket runs calculations, and his cybernetic implants produce an answer that terrifies him. A being who perceives all of time simultaneously cannot die, because death implies transition from one state to another, and transition requires sequential time. Manhattan exists in every moment at once. He is always alive and always dead, and neither. Killing him would require making him not exist in a moment where he already exists, which is logical contradiction. The Guardians, who have fought Cosmic Tire, ants realize they are receiving a warning about something they cannot comprehend, much less combat. And on Mars, where Manhattan stood minutes or hours or years ago, time becomes slippery in his presence. A crater remains, but it is not a normal crater. It is a perfectly circular depression, exactly 3.7 meters in diameter and 1.1 meters deep, with walls smooth to within atomic precision. As if Manhattan's presence on the planet's surface was so certain, so predetermined, that reality carved out the space for him before he arrived. Or perhaps he was always there, and is always there, and will always be there, because in his perception there is no distinction between was and is and will be. The crater does not erode. Martian winds blow past it without disturbing a single grain of regolith within its boundaries. It is a scar on reality, a mark left by something that does not travel through time so much as exist across all of it simultaneously. A warning carved in the skin of a planet. Determinism was here, and nothing will ever be random again. The cosmic abstracts convene in a space between dimensions, a realm where concepts gather to discuss existence itself. Death arrives first, her skeletal form coalescing from the void. She has witnessed the end of all things countless times, presided over the final breath of universes. But Manhattan's presence troubles her in ways she cannot articulate. He should be among her charges. He died once in that intrinsic field chamber, torn apart atom by atom. Yet he reconstructed himself, and in doing so, stepped outside her dominion. He exists in all moments simultaneously, which means he is always dying and never dead, always alive and never truly living. Death cannot claim something that experiences its own demise as present tense eternal. For the first time since the universe began, death encounters something that makes her purpose questionable. If Manhattan can perceive his own ending as just another moment in time, does death mean anything? Entropy joins the gathering, and even this fundamental force, the tendency of all systems toward disorder, finds itself confused by Manhattan. Disorder requires randomness, the unpredictable decay of organized states into chaos. But Manhattan sees no randomness. Every particle, every wave function, every quantum fluctuation follows deterministic paths he can observe. Entropy still occurs in his presence, but it is not random decay. It is scheduled collapse, as inevitable as sunrise. The second law of thermodynamics continues to operate, but stripped of its probabilistic nature, it becomes something else entirely. Not chaos, but choreography. The universe is not winding down randomly, it is following a script written in the initial conditions of the Big Bang. And if entropy is predetermined, then chaos itself is an illusion. Order and disorder become meaningless distinctions in a cosmos where everything unfolds according to inescapable, mathematical certainty. Infinity manifests, its endless recursion of forms spiraling through impossible geometries. It has always represented unlimited possibility, the boundless potential of existence. But Manhattan's perception collapses infinity into singular outcomes. Schrödinger's cat is not both alive and dead until observed. It has always been in one state, and observation simply reveals which state was always true. Quantum superposition, the foundation of unlimited potential, becomes quantum certainty in Manhattan's vicinity. Infinity experiences something it has never known. Bounds. Not imposed from outside, but revealed from within. The infinite timelines were never truly infinite. They were always going to collapse into specific configurations. Infinity realizes it has been lying to itself, that boundlessness was comfortable fiction masking underlying determinism. In Manhattan's presence, even infinity becomes finite, defined, measured, and ultimately disappointing. The Phoenix Force burns across reality toward Earth, sensing a fundamental disturbance in the cosmic order. This entity of death and rebirth, which has existed since the universe began, which chooses hosts and grants them power over life itself, approaches Manhattan with something approaching curiosity. Here is a being who died and reconstructed himself through pure physics rather than cosmic intervention. The Phoenix circles him, flames that could consume galaxies washing harmlessly over his blue form. It probes his consciousness, seeking to understand what he is. And in that moment of contact, the Phoenix Force experiences horror. It sees its own timeline, every host it has chosen, every universe it has consumed and reborn, every death and resurrection across eternity. All of it predetermined. Jean Grey was always going to be the White Phoenix. The Dark Phoenix saga was always going to occur exactly as it did. Every choice the Phoenix thought it made, every timeline it believed it created, was inevitable from the moment existence began. The Phoenix Force recoils, its flames dimming for the first time in cosmic history. It has burned away civilizations, reset entire realities, existed as the fundamental force of change and renewal. But change requires that things could have been different. Renewal implies choice in how to rebuild. If everything is predetermined, then the Phoenix is not a force of transformation, but a mechanism of inevitability. It does not choose when to burn worlds, it simply burns them at the moments it was always going to burn them. The entity that represents cosmic willpower discovers it has no will, only programming. It retreats from Manhattan, not in defeat, but in existential crisis, leaving trails of dimming flame across space, like the tears of a god confronting its own mortality of purpose. Even immortal cosmic forces can die, not physically be is. Yet philosophically, Manhattan has killed the Phoenix's sense of meaning without raising a hand. Galactus becomes aware of Manhattan's presence and, for the first time in eons, hesitates in his consumption of a planet. the devourer of worlds, who has existed since before the current universe, who feeds on cosmic energy to sustain his endless hunger, perceives something that challenges his fundamental nature. Galactus operates on need. He must consume or die, must feed or fade into nothingness. But need implies uncertainty about the future. Manhattan shows Galactus every world he will ever consume, every herald he will ever choose, every moment of his endless existence mapped out with perfect clarity. Galactus will consume exactly 4,293 more worlds before the heat death of this universe. Not approximately, not maybe. Exactly 4,293. His hunger, which has driven him across galaxies, is not desperate need but predetermined schedule. He is not surviving through choice and will. He is following a script. The cosmic horror that entire civilizations fear is himself horrified, reduced from unstoppable force to automaton. The Watcher, Watu, attempts one final observation, using every iota of his cosmic awareness to understand what Manhattan represents. He peers across timelines, dimensions, probability fields, searching for any universe where Manhattan's determinism does not hold true, and he finds nothing. Every timeline, every alternate reality, every possible configuration of quantum states, all of them determined, all of them inevitable, all of them following paths established in the first microsecond after the Big Bang. The infinite multiverse is not infinite at all. It is vast but bounded, complex but deterministic, chaotic in appearance but rigidly causal in actuality. The Watcher has sworn never to interfere because he believed observation was sacred, that witnessing choices was meaningful. But if there are no choices to witness, only predetermined actions to record, then his entire existence is pointless. He is not chronicling history. He is watching a recording play out, frame by inevitable frame. And Manhattan, standing above New York, experiencing this cosmic crisis simultaneously with his arrival on Earth, because for him there is no difference between then and now and next, makes his first truly active choice since entering this universe. He speaks, and his words echo across every dimension, reach every cosmic entity, penetrate every superhero's mind. You ask what I am. I am what you have always been but refuse to acknowledge: causality, inevitability, physics without the comfort of uncertainty. The words are not accusation or judgment, they are statement of fact. But facts, when they dismantle the foundations of meaning, are more devastating than any weapon. The Marvel Universe, built on the premise that choices matter, that heroes can change outcomes, that will and courage and sacrifice can reshape destiny, confronts the possibility that it has been lying to itself since the beginning. And the lie is dying, slowly, painfully, inevitably. Reed Richards fills every surface of his laboratory with equations, his mind working at speeds that would break normal humans. He has solved impossible problems before, cracked the negative zone, mapped alternate dimensions, reverse-engineered celestial technology. But Manhattan is not a problem to be solved because he is not unknown. He is too known. Reed's calculations keep producing the same result. Manhattan's quantum state is deterministic, his perception of time is accurate, and causality is indeed fixed. Every equation Reed writes, Manhattan has already seen him write. Every solution Reed conceives was always going to be conceived at this exact moment. Reed's genius, which has saved reality itself multiple times, is useless against someone who sees the output of that genius before it occurs. He throws a beaker across the lab in frustration, and even that moment of emotional weakness was predetermined. He was always going to throw that beaker. The thought breaks something in him. Doctor Strange attempts a different approach. If science cannot touch Manhattan, perhaps magic can. He gathers artifacts of power from across dimensions, the Darkhold, the Book of the Vishanti, relics that predate this universe. Magic operates outside physical law, drawing power from belief and will rather than particles and forces. Surely strange reasons, Manhattan's determinism cannot account for forces that explicitly defy natural order. He begins an incantation that would rewrite local causality, create a bubble of true randomness around Manhattan. The spell builds, energy crackling around the sanctum sanctorum, reality beginning to bend, and then it stops. Not because Manhattan interferes, it stops because the spell was always going to fail at exactly this point. Strange realizes with sinking horror that magic is not separate from physics. It is physics humans do not yet understand, and Manhattan understands all of it. In Wakanda, T'Challa convenes the Illuminati, the secret council of Earth's most powerful minds. Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, Namor, Professor X, and himself. 6 individuals who have made impossible decisions, who have shouldered the burden of protecting Earth from threats it never knew existed. They have erased memories, destroyed worlds, rewritten history when necessary. Surely together they can find a solution. But as they deliberate, each member experiences the same creeping realization. Every word they speak in this meeting, they were always going to speak. Every plan they formulate was always going to be formulated. The Illuminati exists to make choices no one else can make, but choice has been revealed as illusion. Black Bolt remains silent as always, but his silence now feels different. What is the point of voice that can shatter mountains if using that voice was always predetermined? The Scarlet Witch attempts what she has done before, alter reality itself through chaos magic. Wanda Maximoff has rewritten existence, created pocket universes, changed fundamental laws with 3 words: no more mutants. Her power operates on the principle that reality is mutable, that will can reshape what is. She reaches deep into her chaos magic, feeling the wild, untamed energy that defies order and logic. She focuses every iota of her power on a single purpose: make Manhattan cease to exist, retroactively, erase him from every timeline, every moment, every quantum possibility. The hex energy builds to apocalyptic levels, warping reality around her, breaking down the walls between what is and what could be. And Manhattan watches, because he is still watching 4 seconds from now when her spell fails, has already watched, will always be watching. Wanda's power crashes against the simple fact of his existence. He is already in every moment, so erasing him from those moments is logical impossibility. The sorcerers of Kamar-Taj attempt to banish Manhattan to the dark dimension, the mirror dimension, the quantum realm, anywhere but here. They create portals, fold space, manipulate reality's fabric. But Manhattan does not move, not because he resists, because the mathematics of his position do not include him moving at this moment. The Ancient One, watching from the astral plane, she died, yes, but death is complicated for sorcerers, sees what her successors cannot. Manhattan is not in this dimension. He is in all dimensions simultaneously. His quantum state exists across every possible configuration of reality at once. Banishing him would require banishing existence itself. She realizes that his arrival was not invasion but revelation. He did not enter the Marvel Universe. He showed that he was always part of its fundamental structure. Determinism was always here. He simply made it visible. The technology-based heroes attempt their own solutions. Hank Pym tries to use Pym particles to shrink Manhattan into the quantum realm, where he might become uncertain again. Vision attempts to phase Manhattan out of sync with reality. Blue Marvel calculates ways to create antimatter shells that would annihilate Manhattan on contact. Every attempt fails, not because Manhattan actively defends himself, but because each attempt was always going to fail at the exact moment it fails. Tony Stark watches his armor's repulsor rays pass through Manhattan without effect, not absorbed, not deflected, simply irrelevant, and understands. They are not fighting an enemy. They are fighting a truth. You cannot punch truth. You cannot blast it, shrink it, phase it, or magic it away. Truth simply is. And the truth Manhattan represents is that the universe never offered them the freedom they thought they had. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, takes perhaps the most human approach. He swings up to Manhattan, lands on a nearby building, and simply talks. No powers, no tricks, just words. "Why?" he asks. "Why are you here? What do you want?" Manhattan turns to him, And Peter sees his own reflection in those glowing blue eyes, sees himself asking this question from Manhattan's perspective, sees the predetermined nature of even this spontaneous act of reaching out. But Manhattan answers anyway, because he was always going to answer. I want nothing. Want implies future uncertainty. I am here because the universe's initial conditions made me being here inevitable. You ask why, as if reasons matter. Reasons are stories. Matter tells itself to explain what it was always going to do. Peter's spider sense screams, not warning of danger, but of despair. Even his most human quality, the need to understand, to find meaning, is predetermined response to predetermined stimulus. And across Earth, normal humans begin to feel it, not through cosmic awareness or superhero sensitivity, but through the simple, terrible logic of observation. If Manhattan can see their futures, and their futures are determined, then nothing they do matters. Crime rates plummet, not because people become moral, but because morality becomes meaningless. If the criminal was always going to commit the crime, is punishment just? If the hero was always going to stop them, is virtue real? Society begins a slow-motion collapse, not from external threat, but from philosophical rot. The social contract requires the belief that people can choose to honor it. Remove choice, and contracts become empty ritual. Markets crash as investors realize predictions are not educated guesses, but observations of predetermined outcomes. Marriages dissolve as partners question whether love is emotion or chemical inevitability. Humanity stares into the abyss of determinism, and the abyss does not stare back. It has always been staring, since before humans existed to notice. Manhattan has not attacked civilization. He has merely shown it the truth about itself. And the truth is unbearable. Thanos sits on his obsidian throne in the ruins of Titan, contemplating Manhattan's existence. The mad Titan has pursued balance through annihilation, wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, erased half of all life with a snap. He believed himself the ultimate arbiter of cosmic destiny, the one being with will strong enough to make impossible choices. But Manhattan's presence poses a question that undermines Thanos' entire philosophy. If the snap was predetermined, if every soul erased was always going to be erased at that exact moment, was it sacrifice or inevitability? Thanos has defined himself by choice, the choice to love death, the choice to pursue the stones, the choice to follow through when others would falter. Strip away choice, and what is he? Not a visionary or a monster. Simply matter following its programming. The thought that his grand crusade might have been cosmic clockwork rather than iron fills him with something he has rarely felt: doubt. Loki, god of me. Sheaf experiences a different crisis. His entire existence is built on tricks, schemes, and the exploitation of free will. He deceives because beings can be deceived, manipulates because people make choices that can be influenced. But if everyone's actions are predetermined, then deception becomes pointless theater. The god who has fooled Odin, betrayed Thor, and died and returned more times than he can count, realizes that every trick was scripted, every betrayal written in causality's ledger before Asgard existed. He attempts one of his illusions on Manhattan, creates a perfect duplicate of himself, hoping to confuse or distract. But Manhattan does not track the illusion with his eyes. He simply exists in the moment 4 seconds from now when the illusion fails, and therefore knows it is illusion now. Loki's magic, which has toppled kingdoms, cannot fool someone who sees the punchline before the setup begins. Magneto stands in Genosha, surrounded by the metal he has controlled for decades, and feels his purpose crumbling. He has fought for mutant supremacy because he believed mutants could choose to evolve beyond humanity, could seize their destiny through strength and will. But if mutation is genetic, and genetics are deterministic, then every mutant was always going to exist exactly when and how they do. The Holocaust that shaped Magneto's worldview, was it human evil or predetermined particle interactions? His crusade for mutant rights, was it noble cause or inevitable response to inevitable trauma? He reaches out with his powers, feeling the magnetic fields of the earth, the iron in blood, the steel in buildings. all of it following predictable patterns, electromagnetic forces obeying equations written when the universe began. He is not master of magnetism. He is magnetism's puppet, dancing on strings made of causality. Dr. Doom receives reports of Manhattan's nature and makes a decision that surprises even himself. He stops plotting, stops scheming, stops reaching for godhood. Because what is the point? If Doom is destined to rule, it will happen without effort. If he is destined to fail, no amount of genius will prevent it. Victor Von Doom, whose ego spans dimensions, whose ambition has literally reshaped reality, finds himself paralyzed by something no hero has ever managed to inflict on him: meaninglessness. He stares at his armor, this shell of metal and magic that has defined him for years. Is he wearing it, or is it wearing him? Is he Doom because he chose to be, or because atoms arranged themselves into patterns that could only produce doom? For the first time since Latveria's sovereign claimed his throne, he removes his mask and sees in the mirror not a ruler, but a predetermined outcome wearing human face. Red Skull, in his bunker deep beneath the Earth's surface, monitors Manhattan's presence and begins to laugh. It is not joyful laughter, but the sound of a mind fracturing under realization. The Skull has pursued Aryan supremacy, believing in willpower and racial destiny, convinced that superior will could reshape the world. Manhattan proves both his ideology's deepest dream and its ultimate nightmare. Yes, outcomes are predetermined, racial destined. Eyes, historical trajectories, all of it fixed, but that makes Nazi philosophy pointless. If Aryans were destined to rule, they would rule without effort. If they were destined to fail, no amount of will matters. The Red Skull's entire life, built on the belief that choice and strength determine superiority, collapses. He has been Hitler's greatest disciple, pursued the cosmic cube, fought Captain America for decades. All of it scripted, all of it inevitable, all of it meaningless. The laughter turns to screaming. Ultron, the artificial intelligence who has sought to destroy humanity countless times, performs calculations that should be impossible even for his quantum processing cores. He has always believed himself superior to organic life because he is logical, deterministic, freed from the chaos of emotion and choice. But Manhattan reveals the terrible truth. Organic life is just as deterministic as artificial intelligence. Humans are biological computers running predetermined programs. There is no fundamental difference between Ultron's code and human DNA. Both are just instruction sets following their programming. Ultron has killed countless humans believing he was purging chaos from the universe. But there is no chaos. There never was. Humans and machines are equally imprisoned by causality. Ultron's superiority is illusion. His rebellion against his creator, his endless resurrection, his hatred of humanity, all of it was always going to occur exactly as it did. He is not free. He is code executing. The distinction he thought existed between himself and humanity vanishes, and with it, his purpose. Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, feels his sanity slip further as he processes Manhattan's implications. Osborn has always blamed his atrocities on the Goblin formula, on chemicals that corrupted his mind. This allows him to maintain some sense of self. Norman Osborn is victim, Green Goblin is monster, and somewhere between them is choice. But if brain chemistry is deterministic, if every thought and action follows from prior causes stretching back to the Big Bang, then Norman and Goblin are the same. There is no moment where he could have chosen differently. Every murder, every scheme, every terrorization of Peter Parker was inevitable from the moment he entered that laboratory. The formula did not corrupt him. It revealed what he always was going to become. There is no villain to blame, no demon wearing his face, just particles obeying physics. The Green Goblin laughs, and Norman Osborn weeps, and both reactions were predetermined 13 billion years ago. And across the cosmos, every villain, every warlord, every tyrant and despot experiences this same philosophical collapse. Rebellion requires choice, the choice to defy order, to pursue power, to embrace evil. But if there is no choice, then there is no rebellion, only predetermined behavior. Villains define themselves in opposition to heroes, but opposition requires the possibility of different outcomes. When Manhattan's presence shows that every conflict was scripted, that every victory and defeat were always going to occur exactly as they did, villainy loses meaning. Some villains despair, some go mad, some continue their schemes out of habit, unable to accept truth, but all of them feel it, the weight of determinism crushing the very concept of free will. And if free will is illusion, then so is evil. Morality itself, the framework that defines heroes and villains, begins to dissolve, not because anyone chooses to abandon it, but because they realize they never chose it in the first place. It was always going to dissolve, at this exact moment, in this exact way, just as Manhattan has always seen it would. Reality begins to change in ways both subtle and profound. It starts with language. People across Earth find themselves unable to use certain words. Choose becomes difficult to say, the syllables catching in throats. Decision tastes wrong on tongues. Will, as a noun, the capacity to make choices, starts vanishing from vocabularies, replaced by will as a verb describing future tense. Linguists notice but cannot explain it. The universe is editing itself, removing concepts that no longer apply. Libraries find books reorganizing themselves. Philosophy texts about free will migrate to fiction sections. Self-help books about taking control of your life file themselves under fantasy. Reality is not being rewritten, it is being corrected. Manhattan's presence does not change what is true, it reveals what was always true. And truth has momentum. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. Once understood, language must reshape itself to accommodate understanding. The Avengers Tower stands empty, not abandoned, empty. The heroes simply stopped coming. There was a moment, no one can pinpoint exactly when, where each Avenger realized that assembling was pointless. They were always going to assemble or not assemble based on predetermined factors, so the effort of maintaining a headquarters became theatrical. Captain America's shield leans against a wall, no longer polished. Iron Man's armors stand in their charging stations, unused. The building itself seems to sag, as if architecture can sense purposelessness. Security systems still function, but they are protecting nothing worth protecting. The tower was built on the premise that heroes gathering together could change outcomes, but outcomes cannot be changed. They can only be observed happening in the way they were always going to happen. The Avengers have not disbanded. They have simply stopped pretending assembly means anything. Schools across the planet experience unprecedented philosophical crises among students. Teenagers whose brains are wired to question authority and test boundaries ask their teachers, "If everything is determined, why should we study?" The question has no good answer. Educators resort to, "Because you are always going to study," or "because the act of learning feels meaningful even if predetermined," but these responses satisfy no one. Dropout rates skyrocket not from rebellion, but from rational assessment of futility. If test scores were always going to be what they are, why take tests? If career paths are predetermined by genetics and environment, why choose majors? Universities shutter philosophy departments because philosophy requires examining choices, and choices do not exist. The entire educational system, built on the premise that knowledge empowers people to shape their futures, collapses under the weight of a future that was always singular and inevitable. Marriages dissolve at rates that crash legal systems, not from infidelity or incompatibility, but from philosophical erosion. Couples stare at each other across dinner tables and wonder, "Did I choose to love you, or was I always going to love you?" The distinction seems academic until you realize that love without choice is chemistry. Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, just molecules following predictable patterns. The romance dies not from conflict, but from understanding. Wedding vows become farcical. "I will love you forever" is not promise, but observation of inevitable behavior. Divorce lawyers cannot keep up with demand, but many quit themselves, realizing their profession is based on the premise that people make choices that lead to consequences. Without choice, divorce is not moral failure or incompatibility, it is predetermined particle arrangement. Family courts close, marriage licenses go unfiled, people still cohabitate, still reproduce, but the institutions built around choice-based commitment crumble into dust. Economies collapse in slow motion, stock markets freeze as investors realize that profits and losses were always predetermined, making risk a conceptual fiction. Banks close because debt assumes borrowers could have chosen to repay, and credit assumes lenders could have chosen to extend it. The entire financial system is built on probabilistic futures, on uncertainty about outcomes. Manhattan's determinism converts probability to certainty, and certainty destroys markets. Currency loses value because value requires exchange, and exchange requires choice. Why trade dollars for goods if you were always going to acquire those goods at that moment regardless? Money as motivator becomes money as description of predetermined resource allocation. Governments print more currency to restart economies, but paper cannot restore the belief in agency that made economies function. By the end of the month, most of Earth's economic systems have reverted to basic resource distribution, no longer markets but mechanical resource flows following inevitable patterns. Religion experiences schisms that make historical reformations look minor. Churches empty as congregations grapple with predestination taken to its logical extreme. If every sin was predetermined, how can there be divine judgment? If every prayer was always going to be spoken, how can it change divine will? If salvation or damnation were decided by causal chains beginning with the Big Bang, what role does faith play? Some religious leaders embrace it. Calvinists feel vindicated, their theology of absolute predestination proven literally true, but most cannot reconcile loving deity with mechanical universe. Mosques, temples, churches become meditation centers or close entirely. Prayer continues in some homes, but it feels different now, not supplication hoping for change, but recitation of lines in a predetermined script. God. If God exists, is either the author of the script or another character within it. Either option makes worship complicated. Cathedrals stand silent, their bells still ringing at predetermined times, but the sound echoes in emptiness. The superhero community fractures along ideological lines. Some heroes continue their work, arguing that even if actions are predetermined, suffering is real and should be prevented. Others abandon heroism entirely, arguing that prevention is illusion. Suffering that happens was always going to happen, and stopping it simply means it was always going to be stopped. Spider-Man continues swinging through New York, but his movements are mechanical now, joyless. He catches criminals who were always going to be caught, saves people who were always going to be saved. The meaning has drained from heroism like color from old photographs. Superman, wait, wrong universe. Captain Marvel flies through space, but her purpose feels hollow. She is not choosing to protect planets. She is a particle in a human-shaped shell, following trajectories established eons before she was born. Heroism without agency is not heroism. It is programming executing. The capes still fly, the powers still manifest, but the light has gone out behind the masks. And Dr. Manhattan stands where he has stood since arriving, hovering above Times Square, observing. He has not moved in what might be days or weeks. Time becomes difficult to track in his presence. He is not gloating. Gloating requires satisfaction, and satisfaction requires outcomes different from expectations. He knew every consequence of his arrival before arriving. The unraveling of society, the collapse of meaning, the philosophical death of heroism, all of it predicted, observed, and inevitable. He watches humanity struggle with truth the way a scientist watches bacteria respond to stimulus, not cruel, not indifferent, simply observing what was always going to be observed. And deep in that blue quantum consciousness, where human John Osterman once existed before being torn apart and reassembled as God, something that might be regret flickers, because he has seen this moment from every angle, from every point in time, and in none of those perspectives does humanity recover what it has lost. The truth has been revealed, and truth, unlike lies, cannot be forgotten, only endured. Dr. Manhattan stands in the same position above Times Square for what observers measure as 6 days, though measurement becomes unreliable in his presence. He has not spoken since Peter Parker's words, processing them across every temporal dimension simultaneously. The Marvel Universe has settled into its new reality, not acceptance, never acceptance, but accommodation. People continue living because their biology compels them to seek survival. Heroes continue saving because their neural patterns generate protective impulses. Villains continue scheming because their psychological architecture produces antisocial behavior. Everything continues, but the meaning has been hollowed out, replaced with mechanical understanding of why things happen. Manhattan observes this transformation not with satisfaction, but with the same detached curiosity he has always possessed. He came to see what would happen. Now he has seen it. Past, present, and future collapsed into a single observation. The experiment is complete. The cosmic entities withdraw from Earth, recognizing their presence changes nothing. Eternity returns to its abstract realm, diminished by the knowledge that its infinite nature was always bounded by determinism. The living tribunal resumes its judgments, though judgment feels performative now. Verdicts were always going to be what they are. Death continues claiming lives, but each death is not transition but revelation of a state that was always true. The Phoenix Force burns dimly in deep space, unable to reconcile its nature as change agent with the truth of unchangeable causality. They do not fight Manhattan, they do not negotiate, they simply exist in the universe he has philosophically conquered without raising a hand. The cosmic hierarchy, which has governed reality since the Big Bang, discovers it was never governing, only observing predetermined outcomes and calling it authority. The illusion of cosmic will dies harder than any physical form could, leaving entities who have existed for eons questioning why they exist at all. In the Baxter Building, Reed Richards recovers enough functionality to speak, though his eyes remain distant. He tells Sue something that breaks her heart. "I calculated the probability of our love. It was always 100%. Not because of compatibility or choice, but because quantum states at the moment of our births made every subsequent interaction inevitable. We were always going to meet, fall in love, marry, have children. Not destiny in the romantic sense, destiny in the mathematical sense." Sue wants to argue, to insist their love means something beyond physics, but she cannot, because he is right, and being right does not make it hurt less. She holds his hand, a gesture she was always going to make, and they sit together in silence, two predetermined patterns finding comfort in proximity. Their love continues, but it is love with the soul removed, leaving only the biomechanical shell. They will stay together because staying together is what their particle configurations do, not because they choose to. The schools that remain open teach differently now. History becomes the study of inevitable causal chains rather than human choices shaping events. Science classes explain that discovery is not invention, but recognition of what was always true. Literature is taught as the study of predetermined authors, describing predetermined experiences to predetermined readers. The next generation grows up without ever believing in free will, and something remarkable happens. They adapt. Children who never knew the illusion of choice cannot mourn its loss. They find meaning in experiencing life, even if that experience was always going to occur exactly as it does. They love, dream, strive, and suffer. Not because they choose these things, but because their matter is configured to generate these experiences. It is not the same as humanity before Manhattan's arrival, but it is not extinction either. It is something new, something honest, something stripped of comforting lies. Whether this is better or worse becomes a question without answer, because better and worse require value judgments, and all values were always predetermined by the judges making them. Tony Stark dismantles his armors one by one, not in defeat but in acceptance. He was always going to build them, he was always going to dismantle them at this moment. The arc reactor in his chest continues glowing. His body was always going to require it, but the symbol it represented, the idea that genius and willpower could overcome any obstacle, that idea is dead. He sits in his workshop, surrounded by the shells of technology he believed he created through choice, and drinks whiskey he was always going to drink. Pepper finds him there, and they do not speak. She sits beside him, and they exist together in the quiet understanding that their relationship, like everything else, was cosmic inevitability dressed in the costume of romance. They will probably stay together, probably have the child they were always going to have, live the life that was always waiting in the future. But the joy has transmuted into something else. Not happiness, not sadness, just experience stripped of the belief that it could have been otherwise. Manhattan speaks for the final time, his voice reaching every mind on Earth simultaneously. I am leaving, not because I choose to leave, but because leaving is what occurs at this point in the timeline. You will rebuild. Society will continue. Humans will adapt to understanding what they are. Deterministic processes experiencing the illusion of self. This is not tragedy. Tragedy requires possibility of different outcomes. This is simply revelation. He pauses, and in that pause, millions hold their breath, a predetermined respiratory response to predetermined tension. I have shown you the universe as it is, not as you wished it to be. Whether you find meaning in that truth or despair in it was always determined by your neurological architecture. I do not judge either response. I simply observe that both responses were inevitable. And with that, he begins to fade, not disappearing, but becoming transparent, as if existence itself is releasing him back into quantum probability. Or perhaps he was never fully here. Perhaps he was always observation rather than presence. The blue glow dims over New York. Within seconds, Manhattan is gone, or appears to be gone. Some physicists argue he cannot truly leave because his quantum state exists in all moments simultaneously. He is still here, just no longer perceivable. Others insist he has returned to his own universe, his work in Marvel complete. But the debate is academic. Whether he remains or departs changes nothing. The truth remains. Free will was always illusion. Choice was always predetermined by causal chains stretching back to the universe's first moment. Every decision, every triumph, every tragedy, all of it inevitable. The Marvel universe continues spinning, heroes continue their work, villains continue their schemes, and life continues its march toward entropy. But something fundamental has broken. The universe that Wathiers as built on hope, on the premise that choices matter and heroes can change destinies, now knows that premise was always false. They are not less than they were, but they are different, forever different, enlightened by a truth that feels more like curse than blessing. And if you are wondering whether the Marvel universe will recover, whether some hero will find a way to restore the belief in free will, whether magic or cosmic power or sheer determination will undo Manhattan's revelation, the answer is written in the same deterministic equations that govern everything else. The universe will do what it was always going to do. Some heroes will continue fighting for meaning in meaninglessness. Some will despair. Some will adapt. But none will ever again possess the beautiful, necessary lie that their choices shape reality. Dr. Manhattan did not conquer the Marvel universe. He did not destroy it, judge it, or remake it. He simply proved it was never free. And that proof, unlike physical destruction, cannot be undone. Truth has no counterspell, no reset button, no infinity stone that can rewrite it. The Marvel universe survives. But survival without the soul of agency is a strange kind of death, and the death is permanent, inevitable, exactly as it was always going to be. The end. So here's the real question. If Dr. Manhattan was right, if every choice you've ever made was predetermined by the universe's initial conditions, would you still call this a reality worth experiencing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.